Hello, hello. Nice to see you. I never know how to start these videos. Sean, my partner, always takes the mick out of me for some of the videos. I start them by going, hello. So that's how he now greets me when I get home, by just going, hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. What do you think of the new hair? You might not realise that I've changed it, but I've just had it done this morning. I've gone a bit coppery again, which you might have seen some videos a few years ago. I had a bit of coppery hair. I just decided to go back to it today, because why not? I thought I'd do a little catch up because it's been a while and there's quite a bit to catch you up on. I've also put out a Q&A box on Instagram, so I've got some questions to answer. So let's just dive right in. What's been going on? I had my first weekend yoga retreat in Norfolk back in January. It was amazing. The group was so lovely. You never know until everyone arrives, and when you're the person facilitating, there is a certain sense of nerves beforehand as to who is going to turn up. Because a lot of the people coming I knew very well, but there were a few people I'd not met before who came along to the retreat. So I was very pleased to find out that everyone was just delightful. And it was such a joy to spend the time with them, to get to know everybody, for all of us to get to really delve into yoga for the whole weekend with no distractions, with no other responsibilities. It was really beautiful. And I am going to be going back there next January, similar time. So take a look at my website for more details. It's not quite open for bookings yet, but it will be soon. So that was lovely. Then I got in the car to drive home. I was on such a high. I was so pleased with how the weekend had gone. I was coming up towards a roundabout, slowing down, looked in my windscreen mirror, and there was a van coming up quite fast behind me, and I could see that he hadn't seen I was slowing down. He was not paying attention at all, and he went right into the back of my car. That was not the best end to the weekend, but there you go. He admitted fault straight away, and you know, it's all being sorted, but my back, neck and shoulders have felt the impact of that for the last nearly 5 weeks. I'm still dealing with a bit of whiplash. I was able to continue teaching yoga straight away, but I was having to have quite a lot of breaks between classes. Pretty much any time I wasn't working teaching yoga, I was at home with a heat pad on my back, laying down, resting. It was not a fun few weeks. Thankfully, I'm on the mend. I've had some physio, and through the insurance I've got a few more physio sessions coming up. So yeah, not terrible, but not the greatest start to the year. That's really the big updates on what's been going on at the start of this year. So let's just dive into the Q&A bit. The first question was, what happened? What happened in the accident? I put something on Instagram just recently about the collision. So I've just given you the full story. I didn't really mention, well, I didn't tell many people about it over the first couple of weeks after it happened because I was still dealing with the recovery. I didn't really know how I felt about it. I was a bit shaken up, to be honest, after it happened. And so I just didn't really want people asking me questions about it because I just felt a little bit wobbly and a bit emotional. Obviously, people really close to me knew, but yeah, I kept it a bit quiet until I was on the mend. Another question that's kind of linked to that is, are you still planning on doing a triathlon this year? So typically, you might have seen one of the previous videos I talked about wanting to do a triathlon this year, and this is coming from someone with a background in nothing, no sports. I know I practice and teach yoga, but the yoga that I teach and practice is not particularly athletic, and I have never been a very athletic person, so signing up for a triathlon, or even just considering it, felt like quite a big step for me. I really wanted something to challenge myself. I work well to a goal, like to a deadline. Mid-January, I finally signed up for a triathlon. It's in June. I don't know why I did this, I also signed up for a duathlon, which is just running and cycling, and that's in May. And I thought, okay, I'll do the duathlon first because that'll be like a good practice and I can already run and cycle, so that's not too crazy. And then the triathlon is a month later, so I've got a bit more time to get my swimming up to speed because I'm not a great swimmer at the moment. That's my weak spot. But then after I signed up for that, I did some research and found out that actually the duathlon is arguably a bit harder. The duathlon it's a 10k run, 40k on the bike, and then a 5k run, which sounds hideous. And then the triathlon, I've signed up to it's a standard distance or Olympic distance. So it's a 1500 metre swim, 40 kilometres on the bike, and then 10k run. So individually, all of those things to me feel like doable distances, but it's going to take some real training to be able to do them back to back to back. So wish me luck. Signed up for both of those events mid-January, and then days later, this collision happened and I had to basically stop all training for 4 weeks. So I've only in the last couple of days started I went for a run a few days ago and that felt pretty good. And then I've been on the bike just for about half an hour, and so far so good. My back and my neck and everything else is holding up. So I'm excited to be able to actually kind of get into the training now and hopefully still be able to do the duathlon and triathlon as planned. Just need to learn how to swim. Do you ever get bored of teaching the same stuff? That's a good question. Yeah, kind of. For me personally, it's if I've not had any time off for months, I can get to a place where I do feel a little bit, not ever that I dislike doing the classes, but if I'm tired, if I'm feeling a bit run down, then sometimes I can feel as if I'm just reading out a script almost, like I'm not fully in it, I'm not fully present, and that's when I know that I need a break, because then I'm really not practicing yoga or teaching yoga because I'm not being present, I'm not fully engaged in what I'm doing. And then the people in the class, I'm sure, can pick up on that energy. I know that if I'm in a class and the teacher seems like they're disengaged, like you feel it, of course you do. So these days I try and make sure that I have lots of little breaks and bits of time off so that it never gets to that stage where it feels boring or where it feels rehearsed or scripted, where I don't feel present. Do you practice yoga every day? Yes and no. I don't get on my mat and do a physical practice every day, but I would argue that I'm practicing yoga every day in that I'm bringing some elements of the teachings of yoga into most things that I do, or I'm attempting to do that. I'm trying my hardest. So even if I'm not physically getting on my mat every day, I try and make time for meditation most days. Sometimes it's only a couple of minutes, sometimes it's 5-10 minutes plus. I also try and implement the yamas and the niyamas. I've talked about these on this channel before, but I'll put a little link up here somewhere or in the description to a video that explains what these are. Essentially the moral code of yoga. So ahimsa, non-harming, satya, truthfulness, asteya, non-stealing, non-greed or non-attachment. All of these little elements that I'm continually trying to implement in my life with varying degrees of success. What's been the worst or most awkward class you've ever taught? I know the answer straight away. I was invited a couple of years ago to a college as part of their well-being week to come in and do a little yoga session. They showed me to the room that they had, I set it up, put my nice relaxing music on, sprayed some nice essential oils around the room, and then a few minutes went by, nobody arrived, and I was sort of twiddling my thumbs a bit, and then I went and found someone and was like, do you know if anyone's actually signed up for this yoga class? And she said, we've managed to wrangle some of the hair and beauty girls, yeah. I was like, oh God, okay, so no one wanted to come, did they? So they'd basically convinced a load of the girls who were studying hair and beauty to come in and do this yoga class, and a group of maybe 15 or 20 of them, probably between the age of 16 and 20, they showed up and they didn't want to be there. It was very clear that none of them were interested. So they didn't want to sit on the yoga mats. They just stood at the back of the room. Some of them are on their phones. Some of them are just kind of staring at me. And I started to sweat because teenage girls are terrifying. Thinking on my feet, I was like, okay, so if you're practicing doing any kind of hair and beauty treatments, probably your back and your shoulders ache quite a bit, don't they? Because you're on your feet all the time. And they were like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I can show you some just some really simple stretches that you can do to hopefully make it feel a bit better. And they were like, mm-hmm. So we did like a really short session where I just took them through some simple movements, introduced a little bit of slowing down the breath, and just explained really what the purpose of yoga is, that it's a way of releasing tension, that it's, you know, a way of just calming and bringing yourself back to a state of balance if you're feeling a bit off center or a bit disconnected. And yeah, a few of them kind of got on board in the end, but it was a tough crowd. I feel a bit nervous and sweaty even just remembering it, actually. Is it okay to just do yoga for exercise and not for the spiritual benefits? That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think so. I think if you just want to go to yoga classes to get a little bit stronger, a bit more flexible, a bit better at balancing, that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that personally, as long as you acknowledge and respect that yoga is an ancient spiritual practice and that the movements and the poses are just one part of it. I think it's fine to just approach it from that kind of angle. I would be surprised if you carry on going to yoga classes regularly. I'd be surprised if you don't end up feeling that it has some kind of spiritual component for you. But I think it's fine to just start from a place of wanting to move your body and exercise. Yeah, I think so. Okay, let's do one last question. Oh, this is kind of a long one, but I'll condense it. It was asking, how often do you do resistance training a week? And it's someone asking about wanting to balance yoga, the gym and running and not sure how much to do of each of them. It really depends on what your goals are. I would say that yoga can be a really nice practice to work on stretching out some of the tight areas from your other forms of exercise. If you're getting a lot of exercise like running and strength training in the gym, then you probably don't need to rely on yoga as a form of exercise quite so much. Maybe you can come to yoga more for relaxation, breath work, meditation, maybe. So I would argue that if you're trying to run, gym and yoga all at the same time, you could maybe run a couple of times a week, strength train 2 to 3 times a week, and then yoga you can really do every day. It's so low impact that you could be doing that every day as well. But if you're looking to go to classes and you're just trying to figure out how to squeeze it all in, maybe an hour yoga class once or twice a week you could fit in as well. Really, it's so hard to judge because, you know, it depends on how much time you have, what your goals are, what you want to get out of all these things. I think this is probably quite a common question that people have about how to balance out practicing yoga with other forms of exercise. So if that's something that you'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about, let me know in the comments, and it may be something that I share a bit more about in another video. I will share quite a bit of my triathlon training over the next few months, so I will definitely be talking a bit more about bringing in other types of training alongside yoga. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what I've been up to and answered a few questions. Any other questions you have, leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. And have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Bye.